I mean, we don't bet on oil. We hedge for certainty. We were hedged last year at about $64 a barrel. We're locked in at 89 this year, and we are starting to lock in next year at about 77. So we have about $1 billion extra on our fuel bill compared to the prior year. We're, however, cautiously optimistic that we'll cover that and then grow profits modestly on a year-on-year basis.
Can we just look out over the horizon at the travel market? Because, I mean, we've come off this COVID era, people still want to travel, they're protecting their summer plans, they're protecting their travel ambitions. How does that change in coming years? Have you got any visibility on the horizon as to just what those consumer behaviours look like beyond the initial phase?
Well, I think, this year we're not back to pre-COVID capacity. European short haul is probably somewhere between 90 and 95% of pre-COVID capacity. At the same time, passengers, as you said, customers want to travel in numbers. I think we've had a systemic change in capacity for some years to come. A lot of airlines either went out of business or they downsized during COVID. Their balance sheets are not strong, so they're being very disciplined in how they put capacity into the market. The OEMs are struggling in getting aircraft out fast enough to meet the demand. The leasing companies are short of aircraft as well, having lost 500 aircraft into Russia as a result of the sanctions. So I think you're going to see capacity constraints for some period of time to come. I think people have made it very clear that travel is very high on their list of things that they want to do. So I think demand will remain strong, and that's one of the reasons why we were very confident to place a 300 aircraft order and to project growth out to 300 million by FY34 2 weeks ago in Washington DC.
In terms of how you grow the shareholder base as well, when are you going to start paying dividends of some... I mean, you don't pay a divvy at the moment, do you?
No, we don't pay a dividend.
I mean, look, you had a good year-to-date, the shares are up 29%, but you're still not quite back to where you were at the peaks of last year as well. Sooner or later, the shareholders are going to want, the long-term shareholder, Bailey Gifford I think I was reading about as well, a long-term shareholder, and they like your company, but when are you going to start giving them a divvy?
Yeah, we've got a lot of long-term shareholders who've been with us, some of them since the IPO in 1997. The objective this year, we've got $1.5 billion of debt that we want to pay down. We paid off 850 million bonds in March. We've got another 750 million that we want to pay off in August of this year. Then we've got our peak capex under the game changers, the Boeing 8200s, between 2.6 and 2.7 billion in the current year. So that's kind of the 1-2 priorities. And when we get beyond that, and we hope to retain a modestly net cash, net debt position and a very high liquidity in the business. Once we get beyond that, then we'll obviously look and see what we do with our shareholders.
Yeah,
but the priorities...
His family needs to pay for as well, and he's number 5, is he?
Absolutely. But we'll look at the shareholders when we get there. They haven't been found, haven't found us wanting in the past.
Right.
But the key thing is that debt first, capex, and then we'll see where we go.
What do you need to do to get the shares above that kind of longer term range? I mean, I'm looking at the 5-year chart now, and you tend to top out at around about 18 euros as well. What can you do to get it above? Again, I would point you
Steve,
back to shareholders.
You know better than me. I mean, the market will do what the market will do. It's a volatile place at the moment, but we're delivering strong shares. We're delivering growth at low costs into this market. We're growing strongly, and at some stage the market will decide if we need a re-rating or not. But that's for the market to decide, not for me. We can just deliver the results.
As we talk about your growth, the market itself is changing. This is in the release today that you expect some sort of consolidation over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think that's inevitable.
Where would that come from in terms of the consolidation? Some of the smaller, low-cost carriers as well, or across the market?
Well, it's already started. If Norwegian are half the size they were, but if you were to look at into Italy, 40% has been consolidated from ITA, the former Alitalia, into Lufthansa with a view to getting to 100%. TAP in Portugal is up for sale. Inevitably, some capacity will come out on the back of that. And there's more of this to go. I wouldn't be surprised to see two of the other low-cost carriers in Europe being consolidated in the next couple of years. I think that's inevitable as well, that you're going to see more of that come together, and we'll move more like the US model, where there's 4 or 5 large carriers effectively flying 80% of the traffic around Europe.
You don't have in the States these ludicrous legacy flag carriers who are inefficient. I mean, I'm not trying to blow wind, say Ryanair, but your cost base is, as you say, it's unarguable, your cost base compared with the ex-flag carriers.
We're a country
Why do we still have the flag carriers in the 21st century? Is there something intrinsically wrong with the EU, which is basically supposed to be about getting rid of these barriers and getting rid of these legacy industries.
Yeah, well, you probably saw there was a ruling out in the past week in relation to the state aid, for example, that Lufthansa and SAS got during COVID, which was deemed to have been illegal state aid.
Well, to keep them alive, basically.
Which kept them alive, and I suppose that's one of the reasons why some of these carriers are still around, SAS in Chapter 11 at this point in time. But we have seen a systemic change in capacity. I think we will be left with some of the historic large flag carriers, the Air France's, the KLM's, the Lufthansa's, but ultimately short haul and point to point will be something that Ryanair will be the key player on.